What's up, everyone? This is James Quilty. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Your Upline. Have you ever wondered why some people buy and then a lot of people don't buy that you kind of thought that would, right? Well, there's a reason for that, and we're going to talk about that in today's episode. So let's get to it. How do you build a successful business in network marketing when everyone you know thinks it's a scam? How do you achieve that dream lifestyle when 99% of distributors quit within their first year, broke and worse off than when they started? If you ask the so-called experts or talk to your family and friends, they will tell you that it's impossible, that it can't be done. But it is being done, and it's happening each and every day by a select group of people that you probably never even heard of. My name is James Quilty. Join me as I seek to find out how these elite few beat the odds and succeed in network marketing. Welcome to Beyond Your Upline. So when I first started in this industry, I like all new network marketers. You bought into the dream. You're super excited. You're finally on the path to actually making some real money and to be able to do it passively. And you're going to finally, you finally found a way to actually leave what you're currently doing and be able to spend more time at home. And you'll actually be on your own schedule and not somebody else's, right? And you got that excitement and you're listening to your upline. They tell you to go ahead and you'll think of a bunch of people that you think this would be really good at, and you're like, oh yes, so and so and so, yes, awesome. And you call up and you go ahead and you explain to them like what you're doing, what you want them to see, and they say no, or they're like, what is this? Is this one of those things? I can't believe that you actually got involved in one of those. My uncle, so and so, actually, lost, all of this money. That is just a scam. I can't believe that, you were that, you were that dumb to actually, buy into, that scam. And then your entire dream of building an empire and being financially free crumbles. Right? Have you ever felt like that? I know I did when I first, started, and it was heartbreaking. And you're like, you started rethinking, everything that you had believed in and what your upline had told you, and like, God, did I really buy into a scam? Was I really duped? And then slowly but surely you start to I want to say like fall back, but you kind of like pull back from the business, and then you're not as excited to move forward. You certainly don't want to talk to that next new person because of what had happened previously, and because of what that person had said, right? And it all comes down to this concept of status, right? And the reason why people ultimately buy or don't buy. And I learned this concept from Peter Belcher, and he talks about in his selling system that people will never buy if it, in their eyes, it will lower their status, right? And you can. If you look at a lot of marketing books and stuff like that, and they have all these different closes and whatnot, but really if you look at people as a whole, we're really kind of simple, and we make decisions based upon really simple concepts, right? And the fact of the matter is that, guess what, you're not going to do something if in your eyes you think that it's going to make you look stupid, right? And going back to that example that I used at the beginning of the podcast, right? You start pulling back from the business because what? That person was saying things that started to lower your status, right? You don't want people to think that you were stupid. You don't want people to think that you're dumb for buying into this, right? And the fact that they're saying that lowers your status, and that's why you pull back. And that's one of the biggest reasons why so many people in your team that get excited and they get signed up, you never hear from them again. They ghost you, right? Or they never start doing anything, and it's because of the same situation that I just described. You know, this reminds me when I had, had recently, or actually, it'd been like a few years after I had been divorced, right? And I was actually, driving around in the car that my ex had, purchased, for us. I got that, in the divorce, and then obviously, the car was getting older, and it was time for, me to get like a new car, right? And I was, it was a Suzuki Samurai. Was it? No, it was a Suzuki. Samurai. Was it a Samurai? It was Suzuki's four wheel car at that time. I can't remember. Was it? I don't know if it was like a Samurai or it was something like that. Anyway, it was a four wheel drive, and it was. Uh, it was a good car. It wasn't a bad car, but I started thinking. I was like, do I want to get another four wheel or a four wheel drive type car, or do I want to get something else? Well, I ended up getting a Toyota Celica, right? And it was blue. It was a six speed, and it was awesome. Did it have good gas mileage? Yeah, it did. But I'll tell you what. What I was paying for that Suzuki was about like $150, give or take, was my car payment. And what I was paying for the Toyota Celica was, I think it was like $550 a month. Is what the the payment came out of, or it came out to. And again, I didn't bat an eye. Now, the average person going to say that's ridiculous, and that's totally ridiculous. That's totally stupid. Why would you pay that much for a car, right? But again, in my eyes, I was single. I wanted to, attract, somebody. I didn't want to be single anymore, and so in my eyes, buying that car raised my status. I didn't realize that at the time, and it wasn't until years later when I got into business I started, studying, sales psychology and stuff. And when I started, when I heard what Tony, when I heard what Peter Belcher had mentioned in that course about selling, about status, I started thinking about, like, that is exactly how I felt when I bought that car. I wanted to raise my status, and I felt that if I was driving around, like, in a nice kind of sports car, that I would be more attractive, right? Instead of driving something that was economical, like a station wagon or a minivan, right? But I wanted to raise my status because I want to be more attractive. The same concept. If you hear people that I would never buy something like that, they buy a minivan, because this is more economical. And as a parent, this should be the most the this should be your focus, right? Because you should be wasting money on a vehicle that you're only going to drive around a few times or something like that. That money could go for clothes for your kids and so on and so forth, right? But even in that context, that mother buying that I keep saying station wagon, but buying that minivan, that raises her status because she's seeing, because again, in her eyes, I'm being more economical, I'm being smarter than the average person, right? And so the same thing with your business, and that's what I wanted to share this concept with you, is because when people are saying no to you, it's not because you have an inferior product, and it's definitely not because you're in one of those things, but it's because in their eyes they heard something and they don't want to lower their status. They don't want to look inferior or stupid, or that they got conned or something like that, right? So when you're out in the marketplace and you're marketing your product or your company, what you need to do is you need to think through, how do I present this in a way that will raise their status? Does that make any sense? Right. And unfortunately, what we do is we use these words that now have been associated with being scammed, being one of those things, being duped, not being very financially smart, right? And what I'm talking about is network marketing, MLM, those type of terms. And you'll notice that a lot of the new companies that are popping up in the network marketing industry, it's the same thing. They're they get paid on multiple different levels, which is why they say multi-level marketing, right? Network marketing, right? Because why? Because you go out and you use your network to actually acquire customers and recruit business partners, right? You're using your personal network, the whole term, network marketing. But because there has been a lot of negative press, and because there's been some situations where companies have gotten into lawsuits and so on and so forth, people look at those terms as bringing down their status. So that's why anybody that is worth or I shouldn't say not worth anything, but anybody that is a really good prospect for your business, what's going to happen? what's going to happen if they hear those terms? Immediately, you're going to think that, oh, no, that's a scam thing. Oh, that's one of those things. I don't want to look stupid in front of my friends. That's going to bring down my status. And so they're automatically going to say no without even taking a look at it. So, and like I was saying before, if you notice a lot of the companies are popping up, they're moving away from using terms like that. They have terms like affiliate. They have terms like social seller, right? And that's not by accident, that's by design, because these companies know that people, if they hear those terms or if they're associated with those terms, guess what? People are not going to want to have anything to do with it. They're going to be labeled as, one of those things, one of those Ponzi schemes, one of those, whatever. And so they're changing the language to kind of get past that barrier that people have already set up. So again, that all goes back to status. People will never do something if they believe that that's going to bring down their status, right? And so when you're marketing your product, when you're marketing your business opportunity. Oh, that's another thing. Do not use the word opportunity or business opportunity. Again, that's been lumped in, and that is has been coined, in the network marketing industry, and people have, lost money and that sort of thing. You do not want to use terms like that. So when you're kind of structuring your marketing plan and you're ready to go out into the marketplace, you want to think through what is going to turn off my prospect, what in their eyes is going to bring down their status, and how can I present it in a way that will bring up their status, right? So, for instance, instead of talking about a business opportunity, what you could be talking about is right now inflation is really high and your dollar and your paycheck does not go as much. As a matter of fact, that same amount of money that you had in your paycheck, you're actually making less because of inflation, right? So if you want to be smart like some of the top financial people in the world, how do they combat inflation? How are they always ending up on top? Well, they have found ways to make just an additional $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month that comes in each and every month, and that helps to offset inflation. That's how they're able to game the system, right? And people like that are the ones that are always winning. So did you see the language that I'm using? I'm painting making an extra $1,000 to $2,000 as being smart, somebody that is able to game the system, right? To get one over on the powers that be. Does that make sense? And when you start framing your business like that, that is what's going to attract people, right? And the same thing with your product, right? It has nothing to do with being an affiliate or a prime customer or whatever that is, right? It's about answering their problems, right? And framing it in a way that's going to make them look smarter, that's going to make them look more attractive to their peer group, right? Because when you do it like that, they don't care what the price is. They're going to be more apt to actually purchase what you have, regardless of if you're sending them to your website or if you're selling it, if you're actually moving the product yourself physically and sending it to them. That doesn't matter to them. But as long as you can make them look attractive to their peer group, they're always going to want to say yes to you. So going back to what I wanted to talk about, or wrapping this up, I should say, in this episode, when you can frame your product and your business opportunity as a way to raise somebody's status, right? That is what's going to get you the yes. But whenever in their eyes it looks like it's going to bring down their status or make them look inferior to their peer group, they're always going to say no. And as a matter of fact, they'll probably lash out at you, for even approaching them that way. So keep that in mind. It's that selling psychology is what the top marketers are really an expert at, and that's how they're always getting up on those leaderboards. They're always the ones that are always out and ahead, and it doesn't matter if the company crumbles or regardless of what's going on, they're the ones that are always succeeding, and it's because they know how people buy. They know the psychology on what drives people, and they don't fight it. What they do is they figure out a way to answer those questions that are going on in people's heads, and they make it as a positive, and that's why people are always buying from them. That's how they're always making sales. That's how they're always able to recruit people onto their team. Does that make any sense? So I just wanted to kind of share that with you because I see that's a big problem in our industry. We don't take the time to really understand buying habits and selling psychology. And we're just going out there blindly, kind of like the blind leading the blind. And yes, if you do it enough times, my grandfather always used to tell me, you know what? A blind squirrel is eventually going to find a nut every now and then. But you don't want to find a nut every now and then. You want to be the one that is collecting all of those nuts constantly, consistently, and also on a daily basis. Does that make any sense? So remember, always raising that status. If you can do that, you're going to propel not only your business, but you will be able to teach people on your team to do the same thing. So I hope you got some value from this. That's all that I have for today. As always, thank you so much for showing up and listening to me and let me just kind of pour out what I'm learning to you. And I hope it's something that you can tangibly take and apply to your business. So that's all I have. You have an awesome day, and I'm going to see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for listening. If you want to hear more of how the top income earners are actually building their network marketing business beyond their family and friends, please subscribe so you don't miss any of the secret hacks that I uncover.